Hello, I'm toycat, and there are a lot of things I assumed I would never do in Minecraft, such as organizing my hotbar. Yes, this is my definition of organization. We did it after so many years of just not, and it's a little bit better as a result, right? Another thing I thought I'd never do is finish the giant Death Star looking thing. What it actually is it's a big semicircle made out of stone, meant to be just a giant monument in the sky. The truth is, when I first came up with the idea, it was just meant to be a big shocking figure in the sky, and once I started it, I realized I couldn't finish it. I've tried so many times, but I just can't get it to line up. It's not even, it's not a real circle. I don't know how or why I made it, but it's a mess, and today I'm going to be placing a lot of stone as I try to fix it. This is going to be a bit more of a podcasty style episode, which means that I can drop, a little fun fact with you and say that at this point in the video, at just a minute in to the average video, something like 30% of people have clicked off the average Let's Play episode here on this channel, and that makes sense. A lot of YouTube videos, people click, and if they're not into it in the first 30-40 seconds, they're kind of gone. But something you might not know is that only 10-ish% of people make it all the way to the end. You see a little bump at the very end sometimes as people want to like skip ahead, but the vast majority of people never watch one of these all the way through, and today I just give you a little bit of challenge. Are you one of those 10% of people, or will you drop off somewhere in here as we talk about some important things? And maybe, let's be realistic, some entirely unimportant things too, because the way that I'm finally building this Death Star is maybe going to be a little irritating, but maybe you'll like it too, because what I'm going to be doing right here is building a, rather than destroying this entire thing and starting it from scratch, I feel like the best way to start from scratch is to start around, start below the first one, and then to go above and around it. That's right, my goal today, my plan today, perhaps my awful idea today, is to build a, is to build this entire thing, and to build this entire thing around the first one, and then later on, if we want to, we can destroy it, or we can leave it as a monument to all of our failures. We have both of those things as an option, if we want to be entirely honest, but it is a fun thing that we get to do, kind of regardless of that fact, and I'm looking forward to doing precisely that today. So yeah, we're gonna be making a giant sphere. If you want to do something like this yourself, I recommend there's a website called Plots that does stuff like this, but we're not gonna be talking too much about the building because let's be honest, this is stone we're using. It's literally the same block. It's one of the first blocks you can get your hands on in Minecraft. The block itself is not the exciting part of this video, if there even is one. 90% of people disagree that there is. The blocks themselves are not the reason you come here today, or if it is the reason, then you know what? Thank you very much for choosing to do that. But I don't know if you are in the minority for thinking that. The reality is, the block placing itself is not the most exciting bit. So instead, also I think we've already made a little bit of a mistake here, because this is like 7 blocks wide, and this is like 5 blocks wide. I don't know how we've already made an extra bizarre, extra big mistake, but it seems as though we already have. Wait, so 1, 2. Yeah, I think I see what we've done wrong right here. So yeah, this is the sort of thing you'll be seeing going on throughout this video. We need to make sure we don't make mistakes like that, because when we make mistakes like that, things go horribly wrong. And then this is centered around here, so therefore this block goes away, and then this block goes away, and now this can be 5 blocks long, right? Yep, this can be 5 blocks long, and then we can move that and that. And then there we go. Look at that. We have to drop a lot of blocks on the ground, but we now have ourselves the first layer of this thing almost done. This has to be done, like making a perfect sphere. We have to repeat it on every single layer so that every layer is slightly more circular than the last. The maths behind it is kind of interesting, but again, you can use generators for this if you really want to. That's what we're going to be doing today as we talk about some of the important things that have been going on, because we're placing a lot of stone, something which I'm going to be honest isn't my favorite thing to do, placing a lot of the exact same block in a kind of intricate way that requires a lot of thought, because if you mess up, a lot of things go wrong very quickly. It's something that isn't my favorite thing. I like when you can see immediately when something's wrong and you can fix it. There's a lot of things that are mildly misaligned because I've made that mistake before on intricate kind of builds, but we're going to be doing something that is, let's say, out of my routine, out of my preferred system of doing things, and I'm going to be doing that because that is actually sometimes a good thing. And to explain that, how about instead I explain that today, or as I record this video, I tried to live as much of my day as I could without contact lenses or glasses, because just like the idea I had 5 years ago to make a giant stone Death Star without doing it all in one sitting, I am short-sighted, and as a result I see really awfully if I don't have some form of seeing aid. And there's something interesting about the process of taking off glasses or taking out contacts, which I have to do once a the month. I've got these magic pieces of plastic. It's literally plastic, by the way, that stays in my eye for 29 days in the month that make me see things magically. I can see the detail on things again, because as soon as I take them out, I realize, like, whoa, this is what my eyes are capable of naturally. This is awful. Like, how did this happen? How did I used to think this was okay? And even weirder than that is, like, how did humans used to deal with this in the past? Like, you know, like, imagine being like a hunter-gatherer or whatever, and you're out there not being able to see, like, the text that's a certain distance in front of you. I don't know. It's a weird reminder of, like, you know, there's even when you think that you're self-sufficient in the world, there are lots of things that are just required. You know, the moment an apocalypse comes, I don't have contact lenses, so my abilities to be useful go down real fast. But anyway, yeah, I had this moment that is kind of the reverse of the moment that I had when I first put on glasses. It's like, wow, you can see so many details. I can see the individual leaves on trees, blades of grass. You know, I thought that was like a myth, but you can see them individually, you know, when you have glasses on. It's crazy, you know, it's not just this big green, you know, texture that fills in your brain. And it's a reminder of two things. One is just how well people can make do in the situations they're in. But two, it's a way more important reminder about how your brain sees routine and how that whole thing kind of works, I guess. In the same way that, like, you know, most people have a way that they play Minecraft. It is, you know, it has a lot of steps involved with it. I mean, even though I'd say I play Minecraft in a similar way each time, every time I load up a world, it's entirely different. What I build is entirely different and stuff like that. It's still in the same kind of subset. You have a set of behaviors, and this is how you play not only when you're making Minecraft builds and when you're playing all the different things in Minecraft, but also when it comes to, you know, pretty much how you live your entire life. But first of all, let's, you know, tie this into a Minecraft example to make this clear. Let's think about Minecraft updates, right? Something we do a lot of here on this channel. Don't know if you know about that, but every single Minecraft update that comes out, before it comes out, you know, when it's a thing that is unknown, people are very excited about it. They think about all the things that could be, and every single feature seems like it's amazing, maybe just to someone, maybe to everyone. And then when an update has come out, if we look at 1.14, you know, the Village and Pillage update of last year, once the update is out, that quickly converges into a set of things that actually improve your day-to-day behavior and a set of things which you kind of forget exist in the game. I mean, personally, if we take the aquatic update, for instance, as another good example, in that update, there are lots of things that were kind of cool, like the warm and cold ocean biomes, but in reality, the effect that it has on my life as to whether there's sand or gravel at the bottom of the ocean, not very much, because I don't really obtain it either way. It's not an efficient way of getting either of those resources, and the color of the water doesn't affect my life very often because I'm not doing many underwater builds. So, you know, that's a feature that's really cool that was implemented, but didn't really affect me at all. Whereas that same update has things like the conduit, which I love. It's a super high, you know, like power feature, that when I come across it, I'm like, oh, thank God for this. Like every bit of my underwater world that I use on any regularity, even the bit that I'm covering in Leafs, all of those little areas I use the conduit for, and I really appreciate. Same with 1.14, and realistically will be a 1.16. I'm really excited to know that 20% of the update is that will really change our never experience, and I'm excited to know what the, you know, half or more of the update is that people forget about, you know, 3 months down the line. It's something that's going to be, you know, super curiosity, and the reason it's curiosity is because, you know, the way we interact with the world is actually pretty fixed in nature, and that's a really weird thing to say because we like to think that we are these human beings of free will and we can make any decision at any time, and that's true. If you live in a at least relatively free society, you can do pretty much anything at any given point in time. There are limits to that, like I can't plant an IED under insert big government building here, and now I've said that out loud, I'm on some more watch list, but I can't do, you know, certain things that are deemed to hurt off people, but generally speaking, the world relies on just like, you do whatever you want, and hopefully you do good things that make the world a better place. That is the way we kind of treat most humans in the countries that I live with and informed about at the very least. So, you know, like you're pretty much free to do whatever you want, but for the most part, even though, you know, technically speaking, I can put my fingers down my throat and throw up on the street outside my house, it's actually not many days in the year I do that. In fact, I am actually going to go on record as saying I don't ever do that. I have yet to throw up on the street outside my house just for fun, partially because it's not fun, but partially because it's not like a thing that I do at that point in time. And to use a better example of like a thing that you want to do, I've wanted to go to, you know, there's been a theme park, I think it's in Georgia somewhere, something about Six Flags. I don't know if it is Six Flags or it's something else, because there's something called Six Flags in like every US state, but I think it's a Texan thing, so I don't really understand American theme parks. I just know that American theme parks, and really like, I don't know, every theme park I've been to outside the UK has been like at least mildly better than the closest one to me, because like Alton Towers and Fort Park are the biggest ones in the UK. They both suck real bad. Like, I really, really, really don't like either of them, and I don't know why, but they just give me strong do not like this vibes. Maybe it's just that thing about hating something that you're near or something. But yeah, there's a lot of like, you know, there's a thing I wanted to do forever, right? I've had it in my head, but I haven't done it. Why haven't I done it? Because it just never comes up as like a thing I've got to do. I've got to actively not only want to do it, but I've got to actively go through the steps of like, okay, buy a plane ticket to Atlanta, Georgia. I don't actually know if it is in Georgia. It might be in Texas. I've got to look up where I'm going to buy a plane ticket to. I've got to work out when I'm going to buy it, you know, when I can, you know, get that done. I've got to buy the plane ticket, work out what else I'm doing there, because I can't just go for an afternoon. Just go to the, you know, there's all these steps I've got to do, and in reality, your brain picks the simpler option, which is not doing that. Your brain picks the simpler option, which is record a Let's Play video where you make a giant sphere and talk about what you want to do in sad, longing ways. And this is kind of the downside of like everyone having like a set of things that they're bound to do, because by and large, you know, like having a set number of behaviors is pretty good, because it means that you can do things that are required of you, or things that are required of any basic human being. You know, like I used to be terrified about the idea of like paying bills. Like, how am I going to remember to do it every month? And it's like, well, all you got to do is like once every year or two, you got to sign a form somewhere and do this. And realistically, it's just going on a website. Same with like, I don't know, washing dishes is, it sounds dumb to say this, but it's one of my least favorite things about being a human, or it was when I first moved out and like I lived with 3 people and wasn't really sure when or what or how to wash stuff. Now it's just like a part of my daily-ish routine that like, oh yeah, I do this for 10 minutes and then the sink looks all clean, and like my brain knows there's a positive feedback loop involved right there. But doing something that I'm not familiar with, have never done before, and don't really know the process for instance, I've got to buy a door for my house. My current one's like broken. It's not broken, it's just like, it looks really broken, and that probably isn't a good sign for security. And also, eventually I've got to sell the house, and also, I don't know, I just like a nice front door, okay? Don't judge me, internet. I'll buy front door of the revenue I make from the ads you watch before these videos. What are you gonna do about it? But it's like, you gotta work, you know, if you want to buy a front door, it's like, how do you do this? Do you just Google front door? What is a door meant to cost? And actually, you know, as I looked into it, buying a door actually is hugely complicated. Like, I just like, I emailed some people and they're like, we're gonna have to come look at your door, and then you're gonna have to tell us the door you want, and then we can give you the price. They sent me this whole brochure, but there's no prices attached. And it's like, I don't want to do a form of shopping where someone comes out to my house and offers me a price, because I've told you the story about this guy who offered to fix my gutter and said like, oh, that'll be 400. And he was like, okay, you can't do that, 200. Okay, you can't do that. And then he went all the way down to like a tenner before I said, I just don't want it fixed, man. And I was like, oh my God, I almost, like, if I did want that gutter fixed and I thought 400 is the right price, I would have felt like I had to pay this person 390 too much. And that hurts, you know, like, so, you know, like, it seems super dumb. It seems like a weird thing to be stuck down, but buying a front door, or, you know, I need a new bathroom fixed, or like, also I've had this ant issue forever that I've been like badly dealing with. You know, long-term problems, dealing with issues you haven't dealt with before is kind of a hard thing, whereas dealing with issues you have had before is really easy. If you are tired and it is nighttime and you are at your house, you can use that bed. Your brain knows what to do, you go there. Obviously, this feedback loop also works for other things, like, oh, you've got a lot of things you've got to do, you don't really know how to do them, but you know what? It's nighttime and you're in your house. Go to the bedroom and you can go to sleep and deal with this some other time. Oh, is it not nighttime and you really shouldn't be sleeping right now? You know, go to sleep, deal with the problems later. It's a thing you've done in the past, and it's a thing you can do in the future. In the same way that you can have like positive loops of behavior, which I'd say like, if you go out every day to work, even, you know, some people, when they're tired, when they're broken as people, they still make, you know, like they go into that routine of going to the work or going to their place of school or whatever. They do a thing they don't want to do in the moment so that they can avoid something they don't want to happen later down the line, because I know some schools value attendance pretty highly. I've heard in America, like, some schools are really strict on that. My school never was, and I wish that wasn't true, because I always had like 100% attendance. Not because I cared about school in the slightest, in fact, very much the opposite, but just because I didn't get sick. And like, when I tried to pretend being sick, my mom would be like, nope, you're going to school. Or if you want to stay home, you're too sick to, you know, go to school, then you're too sick to play games. And I was like, well, if I can't play games, I guess I'm going to school then. And having, like, you know, these forms of like routines, these forms of behaviors in your life which lead to positive feedback loops is most of what being like a functional adult is. Like, I didn't realize this until I've been reading like this book by the old Disney CEO recently, and in that book it makes it sound like, you know, he makes these big decisions all the time, but it mostly just sounds like, yeah, that's just my job, you know, like I know every day there's going to be a big decision and a really hard one to make, but you've got gotta make them, you know? You've gotta make the things go forwards. And when you realize that, like, even on, you know, no matter what level, high or low, that things are actually happening on, it's because people get into situations that most people would stall in, but their brain is like, no, we know the solution to this. Just being able to, like, have your brain autopilot most of what you need to do is honestly how you become successful. People would love to convince you that, you know, being whatever it is that they do that they really love doing, it's like, oh yeah, every single, you know, moment is this super well thought out thing. But in reality, all people are people. Just some people are people who are programmed either naturally or because this is just the series of things they force themselves to do the first time, you know, who get like things done on like crazy high levels that don't even make sense to the rest of us. But the reason I'm bringing this up is not just because of the fact that, like, yeah, I have to do this Minecraft thing that, like, it's a pain, and the end result isn't even going to be that useful for a long time. I want to build a mob farm inside of here. I think it's called a mob grinder. I need a lot of gunpowder because in the next update there's going to be you know, ancient debris. The fastest way to find ancient debris is by mining. You can use beds if you want to, or you can just use classic TNT. I think TNT works better than beds, and also you can do it from a distance. On bedrock, it's really hard to avoid the explosion off a bed when you use it. So, you know, long story, you know, because the explosion physics is slightly different. Long story short, I need a lot of gunpowder. I know I've got to do this thing. I know that the you know, like the old Death Star is like a eyesore, and I want to do something a little different, but it hurts to do. Like every step along the way, I've just been like, is this really happening? The only thing that's driven me forwards is I've been like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to override my base desire not to, and it's going to happen. It's going to be the Let's Play episode, and everyone by the end of this, even though we're only a few layers in right now, you know, like 5 layers into a build that needs to be 24 or 25 layers. I mean, we go for the full 49 and make an actual sphere as opposed to a semi-sphere, but like, you know, there's 5 times more of this, and also the layers we're about to do are going to get bigger and bigger because when you make sphere, you know, circles, they get bigger and bigger because that's how spheres work. So we're needing more than that with 20% through, and overthinking these sorts of things, you know, like, it's funny enough because the people who think the most about whether or not they can do something are less likely than people who just go and do the thing. And I've, you know, been thinking about this like routine thing is like, this is probably why school exists in the world. I think, obviously, like the reason school started to exist was like, hey, you know, educating people, vaguely important. Also, parents, you know, wouldn't you love it if your kid went away for most of the hours in the day? Because rich people have had boarding schools forever. You know, I only recently discovered that boarding schools weren't just an old concept, they still exist. Like, I used to read books that were from the 60s, because whole grandparent thing. But I used to read these books and, like, people always went to boarding schools, and I knew that was, like, a rich, old thing from the UK, but boarding schools still exist. You can still send children to them, and that's an amazing deal if you think about it. Like, what's the worst part about raising a child? Besides the money, which is huge, I would say. I mean, it's the fact that it's a huge amount of effort, and it's a huge amount of everything that you need to do. You know, you need to raise a human life, the biggest task, perhaps, a human can have. Most people don't treat it like it is, but, you know, you can mess this person up. Or, you know, instead of doing that yourself, you can just send it somewhere and someone else deals with that for you. I mean, I was amazed when I learned that was a thing that exists still. But yeah, schools exist primarily for the reason of like, okay, we need to educate people beyond the broad basics that their parents can teach them. Because one, parents aren't very good at parenting children by and large, right? Sorry to say it. Sorry. If you're a parent, I hope that you're not in the average, but statistically you are. I hope that, you know, like, I don't know how we would fix that and make that better, but most people aren't good at having children, that have children at least. And as a result of that, like, you know, like one of the ways that you can teach people is a school. But I think the far bigger thing that it actually achieves in modern day society is it builds your routine from an early age to be taught that, like, oh yeah, the majority of days in a year, it's the majority not by much, but I think it's like, in the UK, it's like 195 days in the year. You go to this school place, as it's called. What do you do at that school place? You do some things that you don't really want to do. It almost feels like so many of the lessons are designed deliberately not to be fun, but just to be work, you know? Like, yeah, you slog away at this theory or that theory, or, you know, like, there's a lot of dumb stuff that you learn that you don't care about or want to care about. You could learn about something you do want to, but no, you stick with everyone else, you do the thing everyone else needs to do, and you grind away at this thing. And the reason that's useful is because it, you know, gets you in, I guess, a small routine, at least from a very early age, but like, yeah, you need to do something. If you've ever had this feeling like, I know, I used to get this after like a certain number of months of just not being in school or work. I was like, oh, yeah, I kind of want to do something. I don't know if that's a natural inherent desire in humans, because I feel like we have no like test group to test on. Like, have we ever had humans that don't go to school, that don't do anything their entire life? No, because for most of history, humans have needed to find the food themselves to live. And for the part of history where we had agriculture, so some humans can do all the food parts so we can live, all the other humans do the other essential things to make life more bearable. I mean, if we had no plumbers, we can live just fine, right? But also, man, it sure sucks that the toilet doesn't work and we have to poop in a bucket again. Now, we've decided that having a class of people employed as plumbers is a better trade-off than all pooping in buckets. And, you know, like, as you hear that, you probably think, yeah, actually, that's kind of, it would be dumb if we all got rid of that just so some more people can do nothing. So generally speaking, we apply all humans to something somewhere, besides a few obvious groups of people that we deem not to be part of that system. But, you know, the vast majority of people we, like, assign somewhere in the world, and the easiest way to be prepared for that assigned work that's going to come at you is, you know, through school. I really do feel like that's the biggest part of what it does. And the fact that it works successfully, or at least seems to, again, we might have an innate desire for work, and, you know, that's what school is. It's just to get that desire out for you when you're young, or maybe it builds you into that. Either way you want to see that, the kind of lesson you can take from that is, like, you should be forcing little tricks like that in yourself. I've said before on this channel that, like, everyone thinks that, like, it's big motivation that makes you successful, but really it's big discipline, like doing things when you don't want to do them so that you can have things done later. You can make your life more pleasant in the long run by doing things you don't want to do, because a large part of life is deciding when you know, you do things that are super pleasurable, and when you do things that are displeasurable. There's generally a balance, because you know what, your entire perspective about what is good and what isn't good is built from your life so far. I saw a clip this week, I don't know, this is probably quite famous out there, right? There's this clip of this woman who like cries and like goes to her mother. She's clearly like driving age, so she looks like, you know, 18, like a full adult, and she's like, I can't believe someone just flipped me off, like gave me the middle finger. And you know, I don't know if it's real or not. There's a good chance most things that provoke this much emotion and go this viral on the internet, usually they're fake, let's be honest at this point. But let's assume that it is real. Let's assume that there really is someone who's just that, you know, like sheltered or whatever. What has happened their entire life is very few things that are unpleasant have happened to them. Their interactions with other people have been, by and large, overwhelmingly pleasant. So the tiniest bit of, like, negativeness, in this case, someone showing the middle finger, which, it's been a long time since I've used that as a non-jokey... I've never seen it used on, had it used on me as a non-jokey thing. Like, I've never had someone flip the middle finger and me be like, oh. It's kind of like, I don't know, I used to, in school this used to happen all the time. People used to be like, oh yeah, your mum, you know, sucks or whatever. And everyone would be like, oh my god, don't you dare say that. And it's like, I know you are saying words that are trying to hurt me, and it does not hurt me, because that's how that one works. You know, like when someone throws the middle finger at me, I'm like, oh, yeah, that hand gesture sure does hurt my soul right now. I don't know, like, I've never understood the concept of, like, if someone is trying to hurt you with words, unless they bring up, like, something super specific about you, when people use generic insults, they don't hurt me. That's why there are certain words in prison, at least this is what I hear from people who have been there. I have not been to prison, I cannot confirm the veracity or the truthfulness of this, but I think calling someone a punk is, like, a big insult in prison, I've heard. Same with, you know, like, a female dog is apparently not a thing you want to be called in prison, and honestly, I guess at that point, it's more about the reputation of the word. Like, insults really should never hurt you, because it's someone trying to hurt you with their words, and the easiest way to let them not hurt you is to have it not, right? One of the things that, this is going to attract a lot of controversy, but, you know, I during the time I've grown up in my life, I am 24, about to be 25 years old, so in the last 24 years, you know, the first, like, big event that, like, everyone was, like, shocked at, that you still can't make jokes about, I think 20 years is when people say that it's okay to make jokes, so, what, like, September 11th, 2021, then we can start to talk about this in terms that are going to offend fewer people. But, like, I never understood why it was, like, this big event that, like, you say the words and you make a joke. That's not cool, man. You're making fun of me. It's like, this is the event that happened that killed a few thousand people, and, like, that is a tragedy, yeah? But I didn't quite understand it, and I also didn't understand why, you know, like, when there were these attacks in Europe, right? During the early 2010s, there was, like, a series of terror attacks in Europe, and each of them killed, you know, like, somewhere, like, between a dozen and 100 people, and obviously, like, people dying of terror is not a good thing, it's not a thing I want at all, but the level of coverage it got, the level of people who said, I am never going to Europe while this is happening, this is a tragedy, I can't go there, I still get people in the comment section saying, oh yeah, I really love the UK, but, you know, I heard about all the terror attacks there recently, and it's like, yeah, I think there's been, like, 3 in the last decade, in London alone, which is pretty... you know, like, terrifying. You could say, wow, the terrorists have won. They've got us all terrified, or they've got the Americans terrified, at least it seems. But the thing I always saw them as at the time was, like, I don't understand why, you know, a number of people that die, you know, more than that number of people die every day in the UK. Like, something like 1,000-ish people die on the average day in the UK. I think it's like 1,200 or so. These days, that's a little closer to 13 or 1400. But, you know, like the average number of people who die on an average day in the UK is about 1,000. And we never see that as a tragedy. Some of those people are old and some of those people have existing conditions, but some of those people do things that they could have not done. And, you know, things happen to them for reasons outside their, you know, control. Like when someone T-bones you in a car accident, all these sorts of things happen. And we don't see them as a tragedy because we can't unite them under one banner. But just because this all happened in one place at one time, we see it as like this big moment of like reasons to be fearful, reasons to think about, reasons to change our entire ways of life just because of this one thing. I mean, you know, after, again, admittedly a bigger event, it was like 3,000 people that died in 9/11, if my current figures are correct. Like after that event, there was like, you know, this big desire, not only, you know, like to change behavior and like all the extra security that went on, which has cost, you know, like so many billions of, you know, minutes of life, but also a desire to like go into the country, not even the country where this happened, because they were like Saudi Arabian, right? But go into the region where it happened and make some people pay for this. Like this desire to like inflict huge revenge, or even just this desire to like change how things are, because this is a serious thing that could happen to any of us. I didn't understand it forever. Like it seemed like something that was just a overreaction, arbitrary thing. Now as I look back, like, because we've had, you know, in the last like 3-4 months of 2020, it's been a rough year, right? It's been a very interesting year so far. Lots of things have happened, and as a result of that, you know, like I see a lot of people's reactions to it, and a lot of the reactions of this are doing the same thing I guess I did, but on like a different scale, where they ignore the value of human life or of things or of, you know, really anything, like the objective fact that, like, you know, people like stuff, people like their lives, people like the ability to do, you know, whatever else. All of these like values are ignored for the one thing that people care about most. Like, do you care about human lives the most? Do you care about people's freedom the most? Do you care about people's equality the most? Whichever one people care about, they just like ignore the other two things entirely. Like those things aren't important. The thing that is important to me, that's what needs to be important to everyone else who lives in this giant community of people, you know, like statewide, countrywide, you know, union-wide in the case of certain things. It's kind of ludicrous to me that we have a real world where people unironically, largely, again, maybe it's just because social media is very young and people have the same things that I used to do, but it's kind of crazy to me, like how often I see someone's opinion that really just boils down to like everything else can go out of here because the thing I care about needs to be the thing that everyone cares about. But the thing that we should learn from the internet isn't that, because, you know, that's the problem whenever you get to the, like, let's call it mildly political side of Twitter, because, you know what, or like political side of any social media, it seems like it's just you know, like the politics is the problem. But I think it's a problem that like certain social media have as a whole, because their entire thing is trying to get you to post some stuff, and you know, one of the easiest ways to find common ground with other people on the internet is to share some, you know, super niche opinion that like most people don't agree with, but you do, and then other people share those super niche opinions, and like it basically gets you into this place where like the best thing to do, the thing that social media is meant for, is to say these crazy things. And that's why anytime there's any controversy, people ask like YouTubers, celebrities, like anyone in the sphere of influence, like, hey, why aren't you adding this to that? Isn't it crazy that you know, like whenever an election happens in the UK, even in the US, I don't live in the US, people are going to be like, hey, so who are you voting for and why? Who are you going to endorse for this? I find the idea of people endorsing people for elections to be like horrific. Like, no, if you want to know who to vote for, go work out which party beliefs you align with the most in the world, you know? Don't wait for someone. I mean, like, obviously, the reality is most people aren't going to be waiting for it to come to them. But the idea that we're putting pressure on people that, like, oh yeah, you should at least look at the way other people are endorsing and voting. You should look at this group of people on the internet to work out how it's going to go. It's like, this isn't how this works still. We live in a system where, honestly, like, the cool thing about the democratic part of the world is that everyone has this equal decision about whether they, one, want to have a part of that decision, which something like 40% of people just choose not to vote. They choose not to be involved in the decision-making process. And then everyone else, we all get to make our decision about, like, so what do we want to have happen here? There are so many choices. It's so wacky. The modern world as it exists is kind of wacky because for the vast majority of history, there has been no governance collectively to speak of. And for the vast majority of history where there's been some, you know, like set of decisions being made by some ruling class, it has been nothing to do with the rest of us. It's crazy that we live in a time where people get to choose that sort of things. And people like the idea of going back to, like, no, what if instead of like individuals all made their own decisions, what if we pressured individuals into making my decision, and indeed into making the decisions of whichever celebrities or whoever is parroting the points that you'd want to talk about. I think the idea of doing what people effectively do and talk to strangers all the time about politics, it's just a bad idea. I mean, there's only going to be people who you trust and who trust you closely, who are even going to want to listen to anything like that. And the fact that it's like not only a thing that people encourage others to do, but also it's a thing people like reward, like, oh, this person shared an opinion that happens to match my own. I love them for this. Wow. I find it to be this crazy world we live in where instead of looking up how things happen, we just get a feel for what people around us think about it, which is what social media does. And I feel like it makes for a world that's less informed and intelligent. But the reason we talk about the events of 2020 that are going to spiral into a weird world later on this year, you know, I actually will be making a video that is going to be about, explicitly about politics in election terms later this year. I've had it planned for like a certain amount of time. It's a super dumb video, but like, you know, the reason I'm making it is not because like I like to share my opinions, because you know, I don't care who's going to watch the opinion thing. I think people are going to watch it and they're hopefully going to find it at least enjoyable. Again, my intention, not everything needs to be done in the world with the intention of influencing things, because you get to do that intention of influencing things every X number of years in a democratic system that is a wonderful right that we all have, that we seem to forget about every time it's between elections, and that's why a certain number of people never choose to vote, because they don't assume that's where the decision making is made. The real decisions, the real you know, world is made by the hashtags on the Twitters, etc. But anyway, you know, let's leave that aside. So events in 2020 have been pretty crazy, right? I think it's been a non-stop crazy supernova of like things that people feel passionate about. But you know, the big one that's still going on, the big one that will still be going on in a month from now, and beyond that, who knows? You know, question mark, is you know, this like weird pandemic. Let's just call it. There is a thing that happened, and interestingly enough, one of the things it did, one of the reasons that so many people were so distressed by it, was because of how much it distressed their routine. It's interesting, because right now we're at the peak, obviously just about to head on the way down, or depending on your country, maybe the peak was you know, a few weeks ago. In a lot of countries it was, but the peak is like just happening. You know, the most number of, and by the way, when you just say the peak, you lose the point, the important human fact of like the most number of humans are dying per day from things that they likely would not have died of otherwise, because of what's going on the world right now. But it's having the least impact on people, mostly because of the fact that like, oh yeah, when something first happens, it becomes this big disruptor in the world. It becomes this huge, I don't know how I'm gonna live with this. Like, you know, as soon as, you know, let's laugh about some of the like weird side effects, because like everyone knows, like, oh yeah, it was hard to adjust to life when supermarkets became these weird places where you have to stand apart, and there's these worrying announcements which come on. You know, things feel a bit like a zombie apocalypse in certain ways at first, the ways things were. But like the even funnier like kind of outcomes were like, oh yeah, podcasting microphones, they went out of business because everyone decided they wanted podcast quality microphones and cameras, and you know, the note capture cards went out of stock. Nintendo Switches went out of stock because so many people wanted to play Animal Crossing with their spare time. Like the impact of people staying home is a really interesting one to look at. I mean, obviously the first thing people noticed was like toilet paper, what a crazy thing. But like Netflix traffic went crazy up, YouTube traffic went crazy up. Pretty much every Minecraft YouTuber I looked at had a triple increase in the number of people watching their videos, because you know, apparently Minecraft YouTube is something you watch in your spare time. You don't feel like you make enough spare time for it, but when you got some more, you watch a bunch of videos, as apparently either the YouTube algorithm or the people directly themselves decided to make. You know, my channel wasn't immune to that. We had like a triple increase during the month of April that seems to have gone pretty much back down to normal now. Like, we went up 300% in a month, and then 90% of that went away as we start June. It's a very weird world in terms of like how people's behaviors were impacted at first, and how terrifying it was, and like, you know, everyone was going through the same thing together, because going through a routine, you know, like a disruption to how you live your life is kind of weird by yourself, but when it happens to a lot of people, that's when impacts happen. I mean, for the first ever time, there's just been this thing of like, oh yeah, even if you don't have a job, the government can just give you a bunch of money, and like it like depends by state, country, there's a lot of different things, but like the number of people who are like effectively, it's been realized by you know, like their company, or you know, maybe just their co-workers, that their job actually wasn't necessary, because in every company there's a bunch of people who, again, because they just do their one task that they know, or sometimes they do 0 tasks. If you think about a company that has 100,000 employees, how many of those employees do you think just exist? You know, they're on the company payroll, and no one really thinks too much about them, besides when they have a a review and someone asks, like, are you doing good? What have you done? And if they can get their way through that, they can just be kind of continuously there. We never have these situations where people are just forced not to do the thing that they do. And when you do that, you realize the people that are like crucial and necessary and the people that aren't. I mean, again, for instance, like people who work at stores, seems like it's pretty essential. We say it's essential though, like, but like I feel like, you know, people who do the deliveries and stuff, super essential. People who work in hospitals, very essential. I've always felt like, you know, isn't this pandemic proving now more than ever that one, cashiers aren't actually essential. They're essential so that the supermarket gets paid, which I'll admit is essential so they get the next set of stuff. Like, okay, supermarket needs to make money, but like automated checkouts, this is like the biggest sales pitch we've ever had, right? Like, what if instead of having a person sit in a chair, because I've heard, tell me if this is true in the comments, like, this is something that an American who was living with me told me recently, but apparently in the, you know, in the UK, our supermarket people, they sit in chairs. Apparently that's like a British thing, and that most American supermarkets, you have to stand the whole day, question mark. That sounds like a lot of work. You know what? I'd see you as essential for that. But like, we have these people exposed unnecessarily to so much human contact, and it's like, you know, we have machines that do this. It's been the same at my bank, actually. Like, my bank is open an absurdly short number of hours in a day. They're like, we're open for 2 hours because essential reasons. And it's like, what use does opening for how does opening for fewer hours, like, help, you know, doing only essential things? Like, it just means that it gets crazy crowded, which is not what you want. I don't know, let's not talk about my bank issues too much, because it's very small on the list, I guess we could say. But like, I went into my bank and like, oh yeah, it turns out there's machines that do the thing I usually go to a person to. I used the machine and it didn't work, and I had to go to a person. But the machine should have worked. The reason it didn't is because I had a bunch of old money that I'd convert to new money, and it's all folded up like in awkward, weird ways, like into thirds and stuff. That I understand, like, I'm an edge case, but like, yeah, we can use machines for so much. You know, when you're just on the most basic, you know, tickets in the world, there's no complex bag checking or anything like that, and you just go to the airport and you type in your code in the machine, and it gives you a ticket to get on your plane. Or isn't that weird that that's not the normal way? I use an app sometimes even. There is an entire class of employee, you know, the check-in employee, that exists because a mobile phone app hadn't been invented yet. Think about how insane that is retrospectively, and how, like, you know, these people are on the front lines for a while, and they still are right now on the front lines because a certain number of people haven't downloaded that app. Think about it this way, actually. The number of people who would die because they're on the front lines being exposed to people every day because they're essential to get people around or whatever. The number of people who are dying because not everyone has downloaded the relevant airline app. Because obviously certain destinations, if you fly to America, you generally can't use the app because you gotta speak to a person and they've gotta try and like suss you out and work out why you're secretly a terrorist, like whatever. But when you're going like within countries that are generally pretty open with their visa regimes, like, oh yeah, you just download a boarding pass on your phone, you scan that instead, and now not only have you saved the environment a little bit, you've saved some of your own time, you've saved someone some effort, but more importantly, you know, like, because in normal times, people get infected from person-to-person contact all the time, we just don't really think about it too much, but, you know, all these lives that are being lost to people not having an app, it's mind-blowing when you think about it that way. Like, the reality is that humanity is a very complex moving machine, right? We sometimes like to simplify it down, and it's good to have simplifications that make it understandable, that make it like accessible, but you've got to understand that human, you know, like, you know, the system of government, for instance, like, you know, how does voting work? Oh yeah, we all vote and then they tally up the things. It's like, oh no, there's actually constituencies, or, you know, what they called in America, they called like house seat areas, districts, that's what it is. So, like, there's these districts, and you vote in that district, and it's not the person with the majority of votes, it's the person with the plurality, which is often the majority, but not always. And also, sometimes they can run unopposed, in which case the number of votes doesn't actually matter. And also, you know, like, you actually think you're voting for a person, but in the presidential race, you're actually voting for someone who's going to vote on your behalf, and sometimes they don't vote on your behalf. Faithless electors are a thing. And also, if you're in the UK and you live in, I think it's Buckinghamshire, there's this one constituency where you don't get representation because your local district MP guy, he is actually the Speaker of the House, and therefore, oh yeah, you want to have representation? You can't if you live there, but it's okay because your vote allows for the continuation of democracy as we know it, or whatever. Like, the number of little sub-asterisks on even just the most basic thing of, like, we vote and we count the votes up. But now think about, like, the economy, the nature of the thing that allows us to all buy things and goods and services, and when we need them from each other. You know, in the example, your toilet breaks, you need someone to come over. How do you convince someone who knows how to fix toilets to come to your house? Well, you know, they like to buy food and flights and baked beans too. I don't know why food and baked beans are a separate category, but they are now, I've decided. You give them some money, and then they come over to your house. A lot of money compared to what you might, expect, generally speaking, because plumbers are very well paid. Fun fact, become a plumber if you want to make some money. Every plumber or electrician that I've met has been very well off because, we don't have many people who are, like, super skilled and able to actually use those skills in, like, practical, physical ways to do things, because there's going to be jobs that are hard to automate as well. So you've basically got some career certainty, unlike if you are in a supermarket. I'm sorry if anyone works in a supermarket. This feels like a targeted video at you. Get a different job. Get one that can't be automated, you idiots. But, I'm joking, of course. But, basically, we have these huge things that we simplify down to try and make them understandable. And when you're talking about something as complex as how all humans operate, to dismiss someone else's point of view is always a bad idea. But when you're talking about something that you can't fully understand, we can't truly understand how, the economy works, how the world that we know it, because the economy is just one factor of the world, right? We can't truly understand how the world as we know it works, or how things will be a year from now. That's why predictions are a bad thing. Like, who is going to win a certain election? No one knows, because it's happening a long time from now, and things change between now and then, and also it's based on lots of individuals doing their own thing. That's true for a particular election. I heard this recently, it still bugs me, someone being like, oh yeah, like, things are unpredictable right now, like, not only is this happening, but also Brexit happened. And it's like, in a referendum where there were literally two choices, yes or no, it's crazy that one of the options was picked, and it's like, do you expect that democracy works as a thing where people just pick the thing they're told to? I know it blows my mind, is what I'm trying to say of all of this, that people can look at super complex systems, simplify them down, and then assume that their simplified view is 100% flawless. We're all looking at the world through flawed angles, through rose-tinted glasses, or sometimes, as is the majority of cases, because most people hate the world, through death-tinted glasses, grey-tinted glasses, beer-tinted glasses. Maybe a better example, what we're doing is we're taking our glasses off. We're taking our glasses off, we're realizing we can't see things, and we're just assuming we can. Just like me in, like, year 6, when I was even, like, as young as, like, old as, like, 12, I knew I couldn't see things too great, but I didn't think I needed glasses. Things were fine as they were. I was getting through with life. My vague routine, my vague system, or whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of words you can use to describe the same thing. Discipline, systems, routines, whatever words you're going to use, but the way in which you usually act, the way in which you usually behave, it makes things entirely fine right now. And that is why a lot of things are, that's why it's hard to convince people they have a problem with something they've been doing forever. This is why therapy is an important thing, because, like, hey, there is this thing inside of you that you've normalized as being okay, but it's not normal. If you think about, committing suicide, on a regular basis, I've been there too, man. Like, that's not, you gotta work through that. You can't just be like, we'll put that on the back burner. That's an issue for another time. That's pretty crucial, actually. Like, just putting things into the back burner, and that back burner becoming forever, because that's how most people's back burners really do work, is something that I guess is really a hard thing to fix. And that's why I think there is, like, one positive of everyone all at the same time having their lives disrupted, their routines, their processes disrupted, is that now is the time to deal with all those weird little items that never really get dealt through. One of the things, I don't know, my boiler broke a month ago, finally getting around to fixing it. I need a new door, and have for literally 2 years. I'm finally getting around. I'm kind of a door person. I hate making this stone sphere, which I will level with you right now. Did you know I decided just to, make this, actually work, to focus on this 100%, I'm recording this audio slightly separately. At some point in this video, I switched over to audio only. Did you notice? If not, I've played you like fools. What do you think of this little podcasty format, by the way? Because I figured, so many people just say they listen to the Let's Play as a podcast. Let's do one that is basically just a podcast. And this seemed like the episode where that makes the most sense. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Let me know in the comments down below. And I guess what I really want to say is, like, if there's, like, one message from this, it's that there is lots of things that end up on the weird sidelines of life. And if there are things you want to become regular, it's important to just start them now. The first time you do something is the hardest time. The second time you do something seems easy. But then on the 7th time or whatever, when you really want to quit, when you really decide, like, I can just not do this once, it's fine, that's when you need to keep on doing a thing. I've been eating particularly badly during this current situation, because I have literally no reason to leave my house, usually anyway, so I have to manufacture reasons on a normal day. But now the world is like, hey, Mr. Toycat, don't you leave your house for any non-essential reasons. And I'm like, well, there are no non-essential reasons not to leave my house, so I guess I'll stay in here. I can't go to my places of exercise, etc. These are things that are bad. They lead me making worse decisions, but I can fill the void. I've been filling the void with a few things that've been nice. One of those things is my channel turned 11 years old. I don't know if we spoke about this before on the channel, but the channel turned 11, so we worked on something that I've been working on for a little bit, specifically for this time, was we got a plush made for the IVX toycat face thing. Maybe you think it's dumb, maybe you think it's stupid, but like we've done that as a thing. I love the the way it looks. Like, it seems like it was the cat logo on this channel. It seems like it was designed specifically to be this thing. I really love the way we turned that into flesh. Yeah, there is a limited number of those. I don't know the number as this video goes live, but right now it's capped at $9.99. I made a mistake actually that like it's haunted me like all week. I thought like because do you want to know a thing about how unreliable the human brain is? When I agreed to like get this plush made, I was like, okay, they said you've got to sell a minimum of 200, and I put that mentally, and I was like, okay, minimum of 200, and then we'll put the maximum at something like, I don't know, 500, and that can be how this one goes. But then, like maybe an hour before it was going to go live, they're like, oh, we've lowered the number you need to sell from 500 to 400, and I wrote out an email. I was like, no, it was 200. I think you have made a mistake. I was typing out a whole thing like being like, hey, you are a dumb female dog, and you need to stop this, you punk ass. Insert other words you're not meant to call people here. But then I was like, you know what? Before I send this email, I'm going to just quickly go back. I'm going to check that I was correct. So many people have been confidently wrong in the past week. They're like, I don't want to be confidently wrong about this one. Let's go check through the original email and let's see how that one went. And it's like, yeah, apparently I agreed to 500 without realizing it, because I've told everyone else I've spoken to, my assistant, literally everyone in my life. I've been like, oh yeah, it's gonna be like 200. That's the number we have to sell. I don't know if we could sell 200. The fact that it looks like we have exceeded that is crazy mind-blowing to me. But yeah, there is this really unique thing. There's only one piece of merch I feel like perfectly fits this channel. We're called IBX Toycat, right? So it's a toycat. It's about $30 once you include shipping. It's a little less when you don't include it, actually. So if I could make the misleading claim of like, hey, it's available for $24.99, although reality is it's like $30 once you include international shipping. But yeah, it's $30. It's going to be a limited run. It's got a nice little toycat reference on the back that you can look at on that page if you want to, link down below. And yeah, we're only selling a limited number, but I made the mistake of saying it was only 500 in that first video, and it like kind of haunts me to this day of like, oh, how do we deal with that? I can't, like it physically would be impossible to cut it off at 500, which is the minimum to like make it sell. So the new plan is like, okay, we're not gonna fix it to any number, and if you don't like that part of the deal, because they don't ship until August, until it's like confirmed that they're all selling, you're either not charged or it's refundable. I don't actually know the precise details, but you can fix it with no cost to yourself. If you decide that this was a bad decision, that you only wanted it because it's limited, I want to just mention right now, even though this will lose more sales than it will gain, hey, you can refund this plush if you'd like to. But if you want to pick one of the limited edition plushes up, if you want to help us reach the goal, the minimum of like 500 that is required to actually keep this thing afloat, then go to makeship.com/products/IBX Toycat, because that's where the toycat is found. And I'm never going to not enjoy saying that kind of thing. But I just want to mention it here as like a, man, I messed up, and it kind of hurts. Like, mistakes can dig away at you forever, and that's one of the brutal things, is that like caring too much is almost like a bad thing. And I hate that it is, because I like people that care. Like, not only care about a thing, like I love when people are passionate about something, I love when people care about me. I like when people care about whatever it is that they're caring about. Caring is a good thing. I think like, we're in a world where it's easy to convince people that like, nah, you shouldn't care. Even maybe the way you look at my thoughts about like, how you shouldn't be spouting politics to everyone on the internet is like, so what you're saying is we shouldn't care? No, what I'm saying is what you should care about is influencing those around you, not to try and convince them of your beliefs, but to hopefully share some things that might make them better in some way. Because the reality is, I say at the end of my videos, like, share them if you really liked it. I don't know how many people are actually gonna share videos. I don't think it's a very high number, but if someone actually would like a video, yeah, that's a great idea to do it, right? But more importantly than that, like, hey, if there's a cool thing you'd like to share with someone, or a piece of good news in your life, or whatever else, like, sharing is a form of caring, and caring is good, and that's why sharing is good. And that's why Communist Revolution, we're giving away toycat plushes for free. Okay, no, we can't actually do that. Apparently that's not in the terms of the contract. But yeah, I'm very excited about this plush thing as like a one-time piece of merch. At the very least, the one thing I can guarantee is it's going to be this 3-week run, and then it's never going to exist again. And I love the idea, because I have one, I've had one for a little bit. I love the idea of having this little piece of history that exists right now, and knowing that a few people out there have them as well. I guess the way to think about it is there's like a small number that will all come into existence at roughly the same time in August, and that you can only get for the next 2.5-ish weeks on the makeshift store. But yeah, that is just a cool little side sub-project that has been going on. Obviously, there's a lot of them going on, and that's, I guess, what the time is now all about. Because, to mention one last thing that I want to mention, because I have never actually had, like, a consistent routine in my life till now. The weird breaking of routine, or the weird breaking of how my life flowed, is that right now, for the longest time, in the last 3-ish years, I've been in the same-ish place, and I've been able to do the same-ish thing. I make videos in the day, I eat some food that's going to be good for me, I make some videos for the second channel, then if there's any time left over, and some days there isn't, you know, like I'll work on like some little side project or whatever. It's been like a crazy kind of like work cycle, I guess, and the thing that keeps me through it is the fact that on the other end, what's going to come out of it is hopefully, there's going to be a world where I can finally do some of the things that require me to be away from home for more than like 6 or 7 days at a time, because I've always been very scared of like leaving the world of YouTube more than a week, because a week on the internet is years in the real world. And I don't know, I've been feeling optimistic because everything's been broken. You know, usually my whole life changed every 3 to 4 weeks. Some of those 3 to 4 weeks, it'd be like, oh yeah, I'm going to stay up till 4 a.m. because I'm streaming from midnight till 2. Some of those times would be like, you know what, I'm going to start sleeping at 9 p.m. and having like that, you know, normal people sleep schedule where I wake up at 5 or 6 to get productive for the day. There's been so many like routines and things and whatever I've flown through. And I kind of value the goodness of having everything change all the time. And now I'm learning to value what's good about having a consistent thing every day, because it feels good almost to do something that you want to do that is also inside your routine. And it feels a certain type of bad to do something that you know isn't easy and that you don't really know how to do. But I hope this video is a reminder that you should at least try that, because we did it in the background. It was a whole thing, but we got through it together, right? This video took double as long to produce, by the way, because we have to obviously do all the stone and then also do this talking thing. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know if you think that this series works better as like a podcasty thing, or if maybe this is the worst thing in the world, let me know that too. Actually, wait, because I feel like every podcast is better with a top 5 things that I can't do because of crazy situation in the world. 1, I can't go skiing and it's sad. 2, I can't go climbing and I am getting fat as a result. Number 3, I can't go to my nearest Whole Foods. I know, real tragedy, because it involves getting on like a train, and right now public transport's like a whole thing. I know this is a real tragedy. Like I actually don't like Whole Foods. I have this real love-hate relationship with, because it's like everything there is good, but also everything there is way more than you know it ever should be. By a fact, like you feel like, oh yeah, you know, little cheeky markup in a store, like we're gonna charge you an extra 20p. You're like, okay, I understand that. Whenever I go to like you know, stores that are clearly meant for more upmarket clientele, as maybe the word they would try to use, it's just like, hey, what if we charge you literally double the price that literally, you know, a shop that is closer to you or just down the street will sell it for, just because you're in here anyway, and you know, we know you want to buy all your stuff in the same place. Also known as like the inertia tax. I don't know, like that goes into my point actually. You know what? I'm gonna cut off my top 5 list right here. You want to get a top 4 now? Hope you enjoy that. Yeah. You dumb sluts. But no, the thing that proves more than anything, the fact that so many people buy this ice cream, you know, Ben & Jerry's, if you don't know, usually like £2 to £3 a tub, maybe £5 when it's not on offer, literally like 6, 7, 8 in a Waitrose or a thing. The reason they can charge these higher prices, and you know, even though I don't pay them because I choose not to, is because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, this is the place they shop at. They shop at one place because it's easier than shopping at 2 places, so that's just their thing. They don't think, you know, they might even know that they could shop around and do this, but they just think like, it's too much effort. This is part of why like loyalty programs exist with airlines. Most people, when they buy a plane ticket, they're like, I'm going to look for the cheapest flight between these points. But once you fly enough, once you get into it, you're just like, I'll just go on my airline's website. They'll give me some miles. It'll all work out. I get some benefits or whatever. Doesn't matter if it's like $100 more because you don't even go to look. If you don't look at what the prices are, you just assume that's how it is, and that's how so much of the world works. Because hey, people have a lot going on in their world, and checking for the best house insurance or car insurance or whatever else, flights or whatever, it's a hard thing to do. And a lot of people don't do it. Making a giant stone sphere, I don't know how hard it is. I mean, you just gotta follow a model. Again, the one I recommend is, it's called plots. Is it plots.co.uk? Wow, I'm recommending a British website to you all. You know, go plotzed.co.uk. Nice British website with an ellipsoid making tool. But this video has gone so off the rails. All I was trying to say of this is that things be crazy and things are hard, but hard things are sometimes things worth doing, and easy things are sometimes things not worth doing. Speaking of things not worth doing, subscribing to this video. Who needs it, right? Subscribing's lame. Unsubscribe. It's too much effort, right? Also, notifications. Nah, I don't want those notifications showing up when I'm in the store looking to see if the thing that I want to buy is cheaper on Amazon. Nah, that's too much effort. Don't need that in my life. You know, how about liking the video? Actually, you know what? That literally is pointless, but it makes my ego go up if you do it. And also, if you like pointless things, how about you get yourself a pointless toycat, only available for 2.5 weeks. I'm the worst salesperson of my own product. You know what? Don't buy it. It's terrible. Probably has moles in it. Can you have moles? And I guess moles are probably bigger than the thing. That'd be pretty cute if it had a mole in it, actually. You know, it probably has rats in it. Yeah, don't buy my merch. My merch sucks. And so do you. For watching this video that sucks. Thank you for watching. Let me know your opinions down below. And also, if American cashiers have to stand. And if you are an American cashier, do you wish you were a robot right now? Okay, thank you for watching. Congratulations on being one of the roughly 10 to 11% of people who made it this far on the video. I'll tweet out stats about what percent it is on this, because I think it'll be worse than normal. But maybe just by showing people that graph in the beginning, it'll be better. Let's find out. But for now, goodbye.